The Tournament of Power is getting crazier and crazier. And remember, you can watch every single episode on Verve, the new platform created by Crunchyroll, and not just Dragon Ball Super subtitled. You can watch tons of anime, including anime dubs. My Hero Academia, Attack on Titan, Monster Hunter. These are some of the newer dubs, but also you can get classic dubs like Cowboy Bebop, Yu Yu Hakusho, Fairy Tail, Soul Eater, and many more. And tons more coming in the future. The link is down below for a free trial. Welcome to my Dragon Ball Super episode 101 review, and 101 has a special place in my heart because this is the Geekdom 101 channel, and this is Dragon Ball Super episode 101. Following a crazy episode 100, let's see what happens here as the battle in the Tournament of Power continues. Japanese title, Somarikuru Seigi no Senshi, Poraido Turupa, which translates to the Impending Warriors of Justice, Pride Troopers. Now, I really like this episode because this episode of Super really gave you a lot of the different things. It was a big mixed bag of good stuff here. And I really enjoyed it because you got a lot of different things that make Dragon Ball awesome, especially these tournaments. You had a lot of really cool and creative techniques that we're seeing here, including things we have never even seen in the series before, or at least not for a very long time. We got that. We got a good little mix of action. There wasn't too much Goku in this episode, which I thought was very interesting and kind of a plus and kind of refreshing. You know, this episode really focused on a lot of character development, not just with the Pride Troopers. We got to actually see why the Pride Troopers are so impressive and so well regarded in Universe 11. Like, after seeing this episode, you can see why these guys are the true heroes, because even though they acted as the antagonists for this episode, it was still one of those things where you can kind of root for them in a way. Like, these guys have great team-ups, great teamwork, and you want to see them prevail against, you know, the evils of Universe 11. But they were the antagonists. You know, they were supposed to be the bad guys in this episode, even though they really aren't, quote, bad. But the development between Caulifla and Kale here, I thought was fantastic, to the point where, and I say this a lot about Dragon Ball Super and a lot of the new characters we see, like Hit and Kaba, you know, I would love to see either a TV special, a movie, or a series about Caulifla and Kale. I want to know how they met. I want to know what their backstory is. I want to know what their relationship is and how they developed as friends, because in this episode there were several revelations with the character of Kale and the character of Caulifla that I thought was, you know, stuff that had been hinted before, but now we actually see it come to fruition. And that's what makes good television writing, is you give little hints of things and then you pay it off. And this episode was a huge payoff when it came to the Caulifla and Kale friendship. You know, some people have said that they're lesbians, and they might be, I really don't know, but they definitely have a strong bond as friends. In fact, the episode begins with a focus on Caulifla and Kale. It was almost like this is their episode. You know, they're behind the rock after last week's episode when Jiren tossed Kale away, and Caulifla's trying to convince Kale and try to get her to remember what happened, but Kale just doesn't remember. When she went into the Berserker mode, she blacked out. So that's a big difference, I would say, between her and Broly, is that even though Broly was being mind-controlled by Paragus in that movie, you know, and that affected his memory, when Broly went Berserk, he certainly didn't forget things. Like, he knew his hatred for Goku, for Kakarot from day one. That never went away. Here we have Kale, who blacks out when she gets mad. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever gotten so mad that you've blacked out. It's happened to me only twice in my whole life, and it's kind of scary because you don't know what can happen. That's when you're really, really mad. So Goku was so impressed by what Jiren did that he wants to fight Jiren. But Toppo's like, nah, you ain't ready for this yet. And he fires the Justice Blast at Goku, sending him away. So Toppo still got some power. So Toppo tells Jiren, listen, I'm going to send 5 Pride Troopers to go take care of Goku so you don't have to worry about using up your strength or whatever. So this is now turning into like a video game where you have to beat the sub-bosses before you get to the pre-final boss and then the final boss, which of course the pre-final boss would be Toppo, and Jiren is the final boss. So we see the 5 Pride Troopers led by Casserole. They all do their poses and introduce themselves, very Ginyu Force-esque, Super Sentai roll call, of course. And Casserole is actually wanting to target Kale because he's mad because Kale eliminated Vuon, which was the Agumon-looking Pride Trooper last week, and he wants to get her out. And Goku actually doesn't even want Caulifla to even get involved in this, but she wants to fight because they made Kale cry. So we're already getting kind of this whole thing where we're seeing the seeds of Caulifla and Kale's friendship, because I feel like, as the episodes have progressed, I think Caulifla, some people think that Caulifla's kind of treating Kale sort of like how Vegeta treated Trunks for a while, where he's like, I kind of secretly like you, but I don't really want to admit that I like you. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here, that kind of friendship, you know what I mean? That's her protege, that's her friend, but she's not as warm and as loving as Kale is when she's not going berserk. But now in this episode, we see more of that warm and loving side. Now, as far as the Pride Troopers go, we have, of course, Casserole. Everybody knows him. He's the Rolento-looking guy. He wears a scouter on his face to communicate with the other Pride Troopers, and he is the commanding general. He's not the leader. Topo's the leader, but he is the commanding general. I'm guessing he's the battle general. Then we have Tappa, not Topo, Tappa, who is the guy with the beard. Then we have Zoire, which seems to be the guy with the beard's partner, and he's the little guy who can use the tornado technique. I'll talk about that here in a minute. Then there's the purple girl, the female Pride Trooper, whose name is Kokoto. And then we have this electric-looking dude named Kettle, that's an obvious pun. Right? I mean, we know that already. So those were the 5 Pride Troopers, and they would be kind of the main antagonists of this episode, like I said. But then we had a lot of little fights sprinkled throughout the episode. We saw a little bit of Roshi action and a little bit of Tenshin Han action. We saw Roshi bust out the Bankoku Bikuri Sho, otherwise known as the Worldwide Surprise Palm or the Thunder Shock Surprise, which is the move that Roshi used on Goku during the 21st tournament way back, early Dragon Ball. He used that move on Great Ape Goku. We saw it make a comeback here. We saw him do it a little bit, I think, when he was training, but this is the first time we've seen it in quite some time, actually, in combat. And he eliminates this one Universe 3 guy, I think it was Universe 3, I didn't get a good look at him, who looks a lot like Cell. The dude looked a lot like Cell. So we have this little scene where some of Team Universe 7 gather together, Piccolo, Tenshin Han, Frieza, Vegeta, and Frieza eliminates the fat monk from Universe 10. So there's that extra elimination there. And basically they had gotten split up during the whole Kale Rampage thing, but now they're kind of getting back together and remembering they got to work together here to win this thing. Then we have a scene with Goku, and he's having some trouble with, he's in a bear hug, and basically the Pride Troopers are double teaming him. The little purple guy, Zaire, turns himself into a tornado and drills Goku in the stomach. This is cool stuff. We had this whole sequence where we saw these really cool techniques that we rarely see in Dragon Ball, that we haven't seen in a long time, including the big green guy fought Caulifla, and he creates these blue key orbs that surround Caulifla, and then they fire all at her. So it really was like a alternate, different color version of the Hellzone grenade, which is Piccolo's old move from DBZ. So that was cool. So Kale watches this, and she wants to jump into the fight, but Kokote, the female Pride Trooper, sees it and traps her in a force field. Now, I'm telling you this because all of this plays into the finale of the episode. They're all building it up. Like I said, this is a really well-written episode. I really liked the writing. I appreciated it. Last week was more of a stunt show, right? This week was more of a well-written story. So we then have a little fight between 17 and 18 teaming up against Casserole. And, as you know, 17 and 18, when they get together, they're pretty tough to beat, especially now at this level. And we actually have a throwback where Casserole reveals he cannot sense 17's energy because, remember, artificial humans, Jinzo-Ningen, otherwise known as androids or cyborgs, if you watch the French dub, right? There's a throwback. They don't have energy. You can't sense their energy. So Casserole does the Keyblade technique, starts swinging it at 17 and 18. I really like this because you see the chemistry between 17 and 18. They're siblings. They have nonverbal communication. You see them looking at each other. They've known each other for so long. They don't have to talk strategy. They just know it. Boom, instinctually. I really enjoyed that. You gotta understand, this episode was a lot of fun because of little things like that. It's the little things that really make this show more fun than it actually is. And we actually have a pretty cool scene where 18 saves Goku. That was pretty cool from the bear hug. And the tornado technique is done again on Goku. They're firing Ki Blast or whatever. Then the Tappa guy turns himself into this wheel of fire. This is all new stuff. Oh, so awesome. I got a smile on my face. And he goes he goes into the tornado, then launches himself at 18, right? And 18 gets dug into like the ground, but she picks him up with one hand and throws him like a bowling ball to the edge of the ring for a near elimination, but then the ground underneath him cracks and he falls and he is eliminated. So 18 has a confirmed elimination over a Pride Trooper. That's cool. Then we have another cool scene where Casserole goes after 17. 17 catches the key swords and swings them around. So one thing I will say is that I was a little bit disappointed in Casserole as far as power goes. He was not as strong as I had thought, because 17's able to take this dude out relatively simply, not greatly, but I thought he was going to be a lot stronger for being the Pride Trooper General. And he really wasn't. So during this fight, Casserole gets a notification in his scouting to go help out the others. So he goes and he tries to focus on Caulifla and Kale. So the Pride Troopers create this giant purple key sphere. I'm enjoying this, by the way. I'm just kind of summarizing real quick before I get to my opinion. Goku tries to teleport inside the key sphere, but he can't, because the key sphere that Cocotte made is not just a force field, it's actually alternate space. This is pretty cool stuff. So Goku can't go into, I guess, an alternate dimension. I don't really know the explanation. Whatever, it's Dragon Ball, just go with it. So Kale starts to cry again, and you know what happens when Kale cries. Boom, she goes berserk, but wait a minute, this is not berserk. So Kale cracks the force field, and you look at her and she's not raging. She actually has control of her form. She's not in the berserker form. She's not super Broly, ripped up buff, but she's a little bit buff. So I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? So it looks like somehow, and again, one thing I did not like is we did not get a thorough explanation on this. But then again, Dragon Ball Super loves to make transformations without really explaining them. When it comes to what happened, what I believe happened is that Kale is learning to control her power. Now, as time goes by, the more she goes into rage, the more she learns how to control it. Kind of like how Gohan learned how to control the Great Ape form at the end of the Saiyan saga, or, other transformations that can be controlled, Golden Uzaru. We've seen it in Dragon Ball tons of times. This should be nothing new to any of you guys, because all of you guys have watched Dragon Ball tons of times like I have. So, she has this controlled form. I think it's just Super Saiyan. I'm going to just say it's like a regular Super Saiyan or a controlled Berserk. Whatever. I'm not going to overthink this one. So the Pride Troopers, this is awesome. Pride Troopers get together. They fire a giant ki blast. And then Caulifla and Kale, Caulifla transforms. Caulifla and Kale then fire a ki blast themselves. So we have a 4-on-2 beam struggle. We saw a 3-on-2 beam struggle with Goku, Vegeta, and the trio of dangers a few weeks ago. Now we got a 4-on-2 beam struggle. Casserole calls for full power. Kale says screw it, goes berserk, unleashes berserk, full power, Kale and Caulifla together, huge green and orange ki blast, humongous explosion, totally loved it. The Pride Troopers are gone, folks. They are gone. The 5 Pride Troopers that were in action this episode have been eliminated. All 5 of them. The other 4, including Casserole, are gone. So if you were thinking Casserole's going to be a big shot, he wasn't that big of a shot. It's crazy. It's crazy. I loved it. It was pretty cool. It was a little too much like the trio of Dangers elimination, but it was good seeing Caulifla and Kale team up together. So Caulifla and Kale walk up to Goku, and interestingly enough, Kale is in her berserk form, but she's not angry. She's just chilling. She's walking, just relaxed. And then they have this awesome scene where, I forgot to mention this, my bad, I should have said it a minute ago. Coquette starts to gloat. She's like, ha, before you eliminated me, I put up a force field. And then 18 says, screw you, and throws her out. So that's when I forgot to mention that little tidbit that they eliminated 3, and then 18 took Coquette out. So right now, Universe 11 only has 4 members remaining. 4 Pride Troopers are left in this thing. Okay, so Goku thanks Caulifla for their help, and the episode ends with, in the background, Brienne de Chateau is watching and smiling with a sinister smile, and that's what the end of the episode is. So next week, the Kamikaze Fireball sisters of Universe 2 are going to be in action. More on that when I do my preview, but I love this episode a lot because even though last week's was more like fanboyish, I like this episode because it was very well written. We saw a lot of really creative things. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't boring at all. We saw a development between Kale and Caulifla, more information about their friendship and that they truly do care about each other. And again, I would love a Caulifla and Kale TV series where they solve mysteries in a van with Kaba. That would be just fantastic. Let me know if you agree. And let me know your thoughts overall on this episode. I loved it. I had a great time. Don't forget, folks, Verve is the official sponsor for these reviews. And also, I don't know if you guys remember Red vs. Blue, that classic show Red vs. Blue from years ago. Every episode of Red vs. Blue is now on Verve. Verve is adding new stuff all the time, so you want to go ahead and check it out. Link is down below, vrv.co/geekdom. It's down below. You can get yourself a trial for free. Thank you, as always, for supporting the channel. I love you all. We hit 300K last week. Let's keep this thing going for our love of wacky Japanese cartoons. I'll talk to you guys later.